I have connected it with the router, so
Right.
it will not go off here.
Great, great. Surely, surely. So we are live on Facebook and lot of experience conversations that we have every Sunday. Pleasure having you with us. Namaste once again.
Thank you, thank you. Namaste to you, Jerry. Great meeting you after many years. Although we have been seeing you, you have been seeing me.
Yes, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. We have worked together. We've been colleagues and associates. I remember working with you on the India for Change and Delhi for Change program to rehabilitate homeless people and create shelters for them in the cities of Delhi and several other urban cities of India. That was a great experience working with you and learning about the work that you're doing with people who are being rehabilitated from the juvenile system. And I look forward to
Jerry,
hearing more about that.
that was the only time, Jerry, when in 34 years of my police career,
Right,
I took complete leave, that is study leave from the police. And thanks to Harsh that time, he was
right. I
considered
remember.
that we joined together and we started working for the homeless. So I worked for nearly 22 months in a very, very eventful,
Right,
hectic and stormy career
right. Yes,
about which I have written the book now. I took this time off for that reason. Uh,
right,
but then it has been
right.
intermingling the Prayas work and the police work and the social work and this kind of law enforcement. I have been trying to intermingle all my life, all my work.
Right, right. And you've done a fine job of balancing all those acts. I must say that.
No, actually, Zeri, I think a little differently. See, to my mind, the life has to go on as a seamless affair.
Right.
You cannot divide life into watertight compartments. Actually, you cannot divide life at all into compartments, in my opinion.
You're absolutely right. That's what neuroscience teaches you. You can live
Really?
only one life. You can live
Okay.
only one life. That's
That's
what we teach as leadership coaches, that your brain gets wired. So
hmm.
what you do as a professional is what you start doing as a person. So if you manipulate people at work, you will start manipulating people at home. And what you do
Hmm.
as a person is what you start doing as a professional.
Oh,
And
oh,
I'm
very,
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 very happy that you started with that.
oh, very, very interesting. Then let me elaborate further in my context because you, as an expert, and you as a person who is of course a motivational speaker, a person with certain philosophy, a person who's a writer, all that you have done all these 17 years that we have not been interacting so well. Now let me clarify that one of the reasons I wrote this book was that I wanted to kind of interface the police with the community. I wanted to interface within myself,
Right.
the police in me, the police officer in me, and the social work in me, in the sense that past 32 years now, exactly 32 years, 1988, I started Prayas as a very small endeavor, which was a byproduct of police work. And 32 years later, as you know, Prayas is spreads in 9 states. We have 700 professionals working for us, 40,000 people come every day. Now, that kind of organization had no business to be developed alongside Prayas, alongside my police work. 20 years, Jerry, exact 20 years, 1988 to 2008. Well, it was a combined program in the sense that I was a police officer and I had created an organization which was evolving on its own path. So these two
Right.
paths of social work and the police work, they were completely one and the same. There was no scope of uh, dividing them or compartmentalizing them. I found it to be a seamless affair. And the seamlessness of the life is the beauty of life, isn't it?
Absolutely,
You know it
absolutely.
better than me.
I completely agree with you, and I completely. I mean, what you're saying is sounding like music to my ears, and I think it'll be great learning for all the people who have joined in. And thank you to all of them who have joined in on Facebook Live to learn from your life story and from your journey of life. And I'm happy that you started with this because I always explain this in our leadership workshop and our leadership talks that you cannot live two lives because the brain works unconsciously, and whatever we are habituated to doing, like if we start kind of manipulating people at work, like I call lemon squeezing, as I call it, right, that you just get work done from them to achieve results without really focusing on developing their potential, then you start doing the same thing with your kids at home. And I have a very strong case story, a video case story which I show on this, which is a CEO of a large firm from South Africa. which was the South African breweries, Colin, who explains how, because he used to be like this win-lose character at work, he started doing the same games, playing the same games with his spouse, with his children at home. And we'll probably delve into that more as we go along. But to start with, Amodji, you had a great life journey now. It's been like years as a super cop. You at the same time kind of like you said, seamlessly managed to kind of make a difference and make an impact in our society. But before we get into any of that, I would like you to share with all our readers your journey of life, right from your childhood to your youth, to what inspired you to join the IPS, to what inspired you to then start Prayas, to what inspired you to then start a book, which we will get into later. But to walk us through your life journey, please.
Well, I think in the memoirs also, which has published now, which brings me here, this Khaki Industry Storm. I don't really talk about my life's journey as much as you are asking me to talk about. But of course,
So today you'll have to talk about
well,
it.
see, my father was a civil servant from Bihar. He was in
Right.
Bihar civil service.
Hmm.
My mother was, though not so much educated academically, she was up to matriculation, but they were a remarkable couple to have 9 children like me.
Right.
I
Nine
was
children.
right in the middle of 9 children, fifth from above and fifth from below. So
Wow.
that was my position. That is one. And secondly, I was born in a place called Ranchi. Ranchi used to be the winter capital of Bihar that time. Now it
Right.
becomes the capital of Jharkhand. And then after that, along with my father and mother, all of us, the brothers, sisters who were born all the way, all the places, we kept on traveling in various places in Bihar. We studied in very ordinary, small kind of government schools. And then, as you know, that yeah, English was not my language at all till I was doing my bachelor. In
Hmm.
fact, I started writing English in my exams and college, etc., only when I was doing my bachelorhood BA. Before that, I was in various Hindi schools, in various Jilaya schools. And that was a very, very interesting life because my parents were absolutely divine.
Right.
Father was like a saint, an academic and intellectual saint, my father. And my mother was a real taskmaster. She was the one who really looked after all of us, uh, taught us so well that all the 9 brothers and sisters, we got first division in our matriculation or in the studies in the school. And then we had different paths to follow. And of course, one brother was ambassador, and another brother happens to be a leading lawyer, one brother is a leading doctor, one brother became a farmer after doing engineering. Sisters are all very, very bright and very well placed. Now, of course, out of 9, 7 are left, 2 have left us. So that is my
Sure.
family. And then, of course, from childhood, what happened that something very odd happened. When my father went to get me admitted in the school in a place called Muzaffarpur,
Hmm.
Bihar, what
Hmm.
happened that he forgot, and very appropriately among 9 children, to remember everybody's age and all was not so easy for him.
Right.
So he forgot my he forgot my age was 9.5 or 10 years, and
Uh-huh.
the class I was supposed to be admitted had to be class fifth. He
Okay.
got me admitted in class seventh while I was 9.5, 10 year old. So so it started a string of failures in the school. I
Okay.
kept on failing every year. I'll fail in 3 subjects, 4 subjects, 5 subjects, and no kind of hurtling, falling, standing. I crossed through my school education, and of course, I just couldn't appear in my matriculation. In those times, we had matriculation, so
Right.
I couldn't appear first year, and one year I got. And that one year, I became very introspective. I started reading and all that stuff, some assistance from family. And people say it was like Buddha's enlightenment. and
Right.
and I grew out of it, and I understood things much better. And then I did very well in my college, though again, I kept on doing a lot of things. I don't wish to recount all that. Ultimately, I landed up as a lecturer in Jamshedpur,
Hmm.
taught in a college for about a year. And
Hmm.
I was a running success as a lecturer. I mean, I was very popular. I was very happy. I was all into it. Perhaps I never thought that I will do anything else in life except teaching. I loved it. But
Hmm.
something happened, and 6 of us, 7 of us who taught in the college, ended up starting a college for ourselves. We started college for the tribals between
Right.
Jamshedpur and Chaibasa,
Which year was
which
this?
of course, this was way back 70s, early 70s. Okay. And that was the time this underground Naxalite movement was going on in that area. And till date, it is there.
Hmm.
So some of my friends were actually recently coming up from the underground movement also. So it
Hmm.
was a different kind of life altogether I led. After that, for nearly 2 years into running that college as officiating principal at 23 years of age, and then the teaching, etc. Then what happened that my family and others pressurized me to get into civil services, which was a common thing for my family. I appeared in UPSC and then finally landed up in police. So when I landed up in police, it was like a reluctant cop. I wasn't too happy getting into a police service because I had a different worldview. And I was a matured person from different kind of situations which I had gone through already.
Hmm.
So that perhaps brought about certain kind of thought process and certain kind of uh, man that came out of my policeman's life, no? And then what happened that uh, my batchmates were not exactly me. I mean, I was very different compared to my batchmates in those 1974 batch.
Right.
And so 1974 till, of course, uh, when I retired from the service as DG Police, Arunachal Pradesh and Goa, I had a different kind of journey. But fortunately, or let's say coincidentally, it was purely chance that I had a very, very eventful police career also. I mean, the
Right.
two parallel lives which I have led, 32 years of life until now in the social sector and voluntary sector, and 34 years of my life as a police officer.
Wow.
Starting from Pondicherry, where I was ASP, I had a very kind of interesting encounter with the political power that be. I did some really good work in Pondicherry, but I was thrown away. The chief minister became unhappy with me right in the beginning of the service. Then I came to Delhi. I was in West Delhi, South Delhi, Central Delhi, and very, very eventful careers which I have recounted in my book. We shall talk about it later.
Right.
And then I remained Deputy Commissioner of Police Crime for 5 years. After that, for a short while, I was in the Power Center because I became officer on a special duty with the Home Ministry, and I saw things happening at dizzy heights.
Right.
After that, I went to CBI, investigated Rajiv Gandhi case, Hawala case, transistor, a lot of cases. I
A lot
have
of
done
cases.
dozens and dozens of
Yes.
nationally
Yes.
known cases. You will talk about it, including Jessica Lal case, BMW case, Ramesh Sharma case,
Right.
Hawala
Right.
case, Harshad Mehta case, all that cases I have done, and they will come into it. So it was a life, worth living in a way. And as a police officer, well, I would not say that I became a rebel. I never became a rebel because I strongly felt that probably the enforcement of law or the rule of law was a most important thing in a
Right.
democratic situation. Also, in probably to run any program, you need to adhere to certain kind of basics in terms of the legal framework, in terms of enforcement of law. So
Right.
I wasn't at war with the law or any kind which was established. Many of my friends, you know them very well, they became at war with the established norms and things. I didn't do that.
Right.
But then I found myself to be fighting with certain people, to be in contradiction with certain people, because the Indian police, that's a very important point I would like to mention, that the Indian police happens to be totally archaic, totally outdated. The
Absolutely.
Indian police is the product of 1857 First War of Independence. The Indian Police Act is 1861 vintage. And as you know very well, Jerry, which others should also know, that the criminal justice system of India is a direct product of uh, 1857 Sepoy Mutiny or the First War of Independence, after which, historically speaking, the East India Company was closed down in a way for political tutelage. And then the British Crown took over the administration of India and they created a criminal justice system where police was a very powerful organ, a very powerful instrument.
Right. Right.
So that instrument, which was meant for the repression of people, for subjugating India as a colonial country, that instrument is still alive. That
Right.
instrument is still there in force. So I have always found myself in certain kind of uncomfortable frame of mind as a police officer also, with this outdated system of policing, outdated system of criminal justice process, which has been a lifelong problem with me. But
Right.
still, I have managed the way.
Right.
So this is how the story is. You know very well about my social work, in the
Yes.
sense that I started Prayas 1988. It was again a byproduct of police in a way, because a lot of children, homeless children and juveniles and children in need of care and protection, we had to look after them. There was very little facilities in Delhi, so I had to start this organization, which has grown into its process in past 32 years. Today, Prayas has over 150 centers, 700 plus co-workers, 40 homes, a lot of programs, health program, skilling program, all that we are doing. So these two parallel lives, well, you find me here standing. Okay.
So thank you, Amodji, for walking us through your life, and that's a very interesting journey. And before going forward, I read somewhere that you have pledged most of your proceeds from your book to kind of empower more children through Prayas. Is that true?
Well, I think whatever I do, besides my pension, which is not so big,
Right.
and my household expenses, I live in a flat in Safdar Enclave, as you know. Well, I think everything else happens to be for the people with whom I work. I mean, the
Right.
children.
Right.
There are, at any point of time, there are maybe 10, 15,000 children and youth who are connected to Prayas. There's so many centers, so many projects. So, well, I think a lot of the proceeds from this book, I mean, this book which I mentioned to you, Khaki in Dust Storm,
Right.
a lot of proceeds will be actually going to serve them, the children, as I said. Okay.
Right. Very nice. And I'm very happy that you're doing that, because, that's what we have done with our books, also the Karma Kari book series. And I'll tell you more about how I was inspired, like you, to get into that journey. But, there's something which I picked where when you were talking about your life story, and you called yourself a reluctant cop. And you said because you had a different worldview. And a little before that, you said because I had worked with the community in places like Chaibasa in the back of beyond of Bihar, where you had seen people rebelling against the system. You probably had worked with people who are now termed as Naxalites or Maoists. What was that worldview all about?
So, see, in a country like India, in society like the one we have been kind of living, working with, and in a system which is practically superimposed, the
Right,
superimposition of a system which doesn't gel with the Indian life at many places, at many
right,
levels. So, well, when I had the opportunity to study in small places, in ordinary schools like Jilai schools and all.
right,
I had the opportunity to live in very, very small places in
right,
Bihar, which is India's perhaps poorest state.
right,
And then when I had the opportunity to work in those kind of situations which I mentioned you, so
right,
obviously they influenced me heavily. And
right,
I mean, once you land up in an elite service like IPS or IAS or whatever, see, the people who join, I mean, a lot of people join like me, but then they expect a different kind of treatment that you are supposed to give to the people at large. I mean,
right,
we all of us claim that we are civil servants. All of us claim that we are servants of the people.
right,
But the fact remains that those who are in the government, everyone, I think, including the political masters, but decidedly the bureaucrats and the police officers, they seem to think in their mind, in the heart of hearts, that they have come to rule. That is,
that sense of entitlement becomes huge.
that's correct. So they think that, well, I think, I mean, the traditions, those traditions where they were masters and servants, traditions where the Britishers were there and other people are there, they came as rulers. That kind of tradition is a different worldview. I mean, let me inform you that if I happen to start Prayas, so if I am working for 32 years now in the voluntary sector, it's for the simple reason that I am very comfortable there. I have no problem. In fact, frankly speaking, a lot of people say that, oh, you have done something really remarkable by creating this organization. I say, no, nothing. In fact, I have not done anything which is out of ordinary. There's nothing great about it. I'm
Right,
not trying to become a messiah or something. It is something, which in ordinary course of life, a policeman or a civil servant should do this kind of thing. And
right.
I said that there can't be any contradiction between the work I do and I have done 34 years and the work which I do that you know so well. So this is the world view I'm talking about.
Right. And I'm very happy that you're saying this, because I completely echo your sentiments that as a bureaucrat, as a IPS officer, IAS officer, or any civil servant, you are there to serve the community rather than feel that you are there to you're above them or entitled to some kind of preferential treatment. And I've often said this because and I'm happy that you are resonating the different worldview that you're talking about, because whenever I stopped watching news almost around 18 years ago in 2003, when I remember I had gone with Harsh Mandar for an interview after we went on record and said what happened in Gujarat was a pogrom. And I remember Barka Dutt telling me during the makeup which they do before you go on the show, that you cannot use words like pogrom or anything in the show. And I said to her, who are you to tell me what I can speak? And I refused to be in the show. And I walked out of there and I stopped watching news. Guys said news is all vulgarized. I use a stronger word in my public talks, which is bastardized. And whenever you're watching news channels, you will see that a few people who are on the payrolls of the news channels, they sit down there and they condemn an entire community as Maoists or Naxalites or anti-social elements. And I always say we must ask ourselves one simple question: why does a farmer pick up a gun? What is the reason that a farmer who has no concept of gun or violence picks up a gun? And we've all seen those old movies with dakus and dacoits in them, right from Mother India to Mera Gaon, Mera Desh. And we know exactly how dacoits happen. And yet that awareness is not there. And I'm happy that you're sharing this, because it's a balance of how do you kind of implement law in the right way. But then I also heard you saying in the same breath that we are still following the British law, which was created so that police can subjugate the Indians, right? And several NGOs, several crusaders have been working on police reforms for long, but no one seems to be interested in kind of creating any kind of reforms, which means that the police should be there to serve the community rather than subjugating or kind of marginalizing the community. You can see it right now happening in Delhi with the farmers protests, etc. So what are your thoughts on this? How do you think this police reforms would come about, and how do you think one can change them?
See, it's a very long battle. It's a very long journey also with regard to the change in Indian police or whatever. See, actually, when I talked about 1861 law, let me inform you that even 1860 there was a police commission, and that police commission brought in 1861 law. 1902, 1903, there was a police commission, and that police commission, because in UK, in United Kingdom, British had two different thought processes. There was a very strong thought process there which was very liberal, and that was a very, very positive kind of thing, and they believed in all these thoughts that we are discussing now. So they said that the Indian police needs to change in 1902. I am talking about that, so it has been going on. Now the reform actually came of age conceptually when in 1975, 1977 the National Police Commission came. Jayaprakash Narayan, who had sounded the bugle of revolt against the emergency and Indira Gandhi regime. It was
Right.
Jayaprakash Narayan who really suggested, who decided, or perhaps recommended to the government, because Jayaprakash never took an office. And K.F. Rustamji, who was a very celebrated police officer who created BSF also, he suggested to him that Indian police should reform.
Right.
So the National Police Commission came out, led by a very, very thoughtful ex-IS, ICS officer, Dharamveera, and some very thoughtful IPS officers, police officers. And that National Police Commission handed down series of recommendations which could have changed substantially the Indian police. It did not happen. Now, from that time to 2006, it was going on. Then one of our senior police officer, called Prakash Singh, he filed a PIL in Supreme Court of India in 1996. And for 10 years, the PIL was being kind of debated in Supreme Court of India. In 2006, Supreme Court gave certain very clear directions. And those directions are in this set of recommendations, which in case we implement, perhaps some change will take place. Okay. There has been only kind of whitewashing. There has been just superficial changes that have taken place. No
Right.
substantial changes have taken place since 2006, now 14 years later. And we are still asking for changes. The reform is still far away from us. Now, but I have a thought, another kind of idea in my mind, which comes while I'm writing this book, because as you know that this is the first in the first volume of my police memoirs, this Khaki Industry Storm. The Bloomsbury has signed me for 3 volumes, second volume and third volume, where I
Wow.
want to bring out these facts, more elaborate upon them, kind of in greater detail. See, there are two things which are happening with the Indian police, same as with Indian bureaucracy, and mostly with the Indian criminal justice system. On the one hand, you have got this archaic structure, 1860 stuff, which refuses to change. Unless we change it, dismantle and recreate, it's very difficult to change completely. That is one part.
Right.
On the other side, you have got a remarkable constitution of India. You are talking about justice, social, economic, and political. You are talking about secular, democratic, socialist Republic of India. And the kind of provisions which are there in the 1950 Indian Constitution is highly progressive, and they are ahead of time. Actually, the provisions, the articles of Indian Constitution are comparatively speaking even ahead of most of the Western countries, highly progressive democratic countries. That is
Right.
flowing from the Indian Constitution and touching upon the various articles. There are series of progressive legislations. We have
Right.
got hundreds of laws in India now, social legislations you are aware of. I have been party to certain lawmaking also, like Juvenile Justice Act, Child Labor Act, uh,
Right.
Protection of Children Against Sexual Offences Act. I am aware that these laws are very, very progressive. And Indian police and Indian law enforcement agencies and criminal justice system is supposed to deal with them.
Right.
Now, on the one hand, you have got archaic structure.
Right.
On the other side, you have got highly progressive laws. And
Right.
the Indian police is falling in between somewhere. You
Right.
understand that?
Yes, absolutely.
And actually, the Indian governance is falling somewhere in between. And we are not able to meet our own aspirations, meet
Right.
the dictates of our own laws that we have created. I hope
Right.
I am clear to you. Okay.
Absolutely.
So
I
that's
get
the
you.
position.
No,
That's the position.
yes, and I completely picked up that one word which I also use in a lot of my talks, that, instead of really going into the depth of the concern and trying to change it from the root cause analysis, we only kind of whitewash and make superficial changes. I must tell you, sir, that in 2008, along with James Michael Lingdo and Mr. Krishnamurthy, who were the two former chief election commissioners of India, and several other electoral reform experts, we embarked on the journey of creating electoral reforms in India. In India right now, we follow the stupid American system and the UK system of first past the post, which means any rogue and rascal who can do some horse trading and buy some votes and buy some independent candidates will make it past the post. While most progressive democracies have employed what is called as PR system, or the proportionate representation system. And we had a Dalit leader called Dr. MC Raj. I call him doctor. He was not a official doctor or a doctorate, but Dr. MC Raj, because a very learned Dalit leader. And we had him leading the entire movement. And he passed away a couple of years ago, succumbed to cancer. And then with electoral experts from the world over, we all met in Berlin, and we created an entire document on what are the kind of electoral reforms that are required in this country, and we gave it to the chief election commissioner of India in 2011, which was Dr. S.Y. Qureshi,
Mhm.
who is, by the way, on the author experience conversation the Sunday after, not the next Sunday, but the Sunday after, because he's also written a book.
Mhm.
And he, within the week, he implemented a committee to look into the reforms and work on it. But unfortunately, his tenure was coming to an end. And this is 10 years ago, 2011 to 2021. No action has been taken. Some whitewashing has been done here and there, but like you said, I mean, no one's gone to the depth of it. No one's understood the root cause and tried to kind of, change it from there. And I think therein lies the peril of our governance and our entire intent to really bring about change or to bring about reforms, which, because that political will, that will at the bureaucracy level is lacking. And I think we need to kind of look into that. And I connect this again to what you said earlier, sir, that, as bureaucrats, as people who are civil servants, we should not be entitled, rather than understand that we are here to serve the people. And I always say this, that, in India, the reason democracy has failed or is surely failing, because it's a matter of time, I feel, before we become an oligarchy, just like Russia, right? Because the disparity is becoming bigger and bigger as we speak. And the civil servants should have been there to check that. That is how the IAS cadres should be there. And I do some leadership talks at the IAS Academy in Masuri, and the whole intent was that the IAS officers, the bureaucracy was there to check people who are elected as public servants or as ministers. But unfortunately, the bureaucracy has become subservient. Not all, but most. And of course, then you have honest and fearless officers like yourself, Julio Ribeiro, KPS Gill, and you have civil servants like E. Sridharan, James Michael Lingdo, who was one of the most toughest chief election commissioners, who actually made our chief election commission office the most respected in the world in his time. Session was there. And I think that quality of honesty is there in many bureaucrats and civil servants, but that honesty has also to be kind of complemented by fearlessness, right? That courage of conviction to take on the system which you are speaking about today. What are your thoughts on this?
No, I think you are absolutely correct that what happens that unless we go into the depth of things, we are not able to, if we don't find the root causes behind, let's say, the phenomena like this, where we are sitting on contradictions, we are not able to forge ahead, where we are not able to give the real justice. If justice, as the constitution kind of preamble says, justice, social, economic, political, has to be achieved.
Social, economic, and political. Absolutely.
That's correct. That is the justice we are talking about. And
Absolutely.
how can let's say a law enforcement agency, how can a civil servant, how can a political master not be informed about the justice, the concept and essence of justice which is there in the preamble of Indian Constitution?
Very true. Which is our only religion.
Correct. Now you talked about, let's say, the economic disparity. One heard something very, very odd which is happening during the COVID times. There has been, let's say, 35% increase in profit in the kitty of the richest richest man in India.
Yes.
And then majority of poor have gone back 100 years in their livelihood kind of earnings, whatever is there.
Absolutely.
So it's a very strange situation. So disparity appears to be ingrained in the system that we run in this country, or perhaps in many parts of the world.
Absolutely. And it doesn't help that we also have a very archaic caste system which we still follow in the 21st century.
That's correct. Even that is there. So social injustice, that's the kind of social injustice we are talking about. So likewise, so when we discuss the issues that we are talking about, we need people with huge convictions. Right. In fact, there is a small think tank, it's a small, but it consists of some very, very important people, which is headed by Mr. Prabhat Kumar. He was cabinet secretary and he was governor also, a couple of states, an ex-IAS officer. My senior, Mr. M.B. Kaushal, whom I have referred to in the book also as one of the celebrated police officers. Now, all of us, we have a discussion on Thursdays and we talk about the ethics in the governance, the ethics in the civil service.
Right.
You may be knowing that the UPSC introduced a complete subject on the ethics in the governance, which is a very important thing.
Right.
And of course, it's being discussed. So the ethical values must inform and must get transmitted to all concerned in the hierarchy, whether they are political masters or they are bureaucrat or they are police officers. I think everybody has to understand the basics on the ethics. And those basics on the ethics, if it is implemented, if it is adhered to, a change will take place. That is on the one side. But yes, while this kind of controversy, this kind of battle is going on, you decidedly need the warriors to fight it out.
Right.
But the problem is, there is an issue here. Jerry, that, as a warrior, when you become too intense, when you are not able to look around, understand your people around you, then many a times you are washed out. Many a times you are eased out from the position that you occupy.
Very true.
You have to place yourself. You have to locate yourself. With all your mind, with all your ideology, with all your ethical values. If you're not able to locate yourself in the system also. So let me inform you that when you read, you might have read my book, and people who are reading my book would know that I have not behaved like a rebel out and out.
Right.
Rebel at times, whenever there is a problem, there is an issue, I might choose to be a rebel.
Right.
But if you're rebel out and out, the system will throw you away and you will not be anywhere. So you have got to understand how to operate in the system and make a success of it. You understand that without compromising the ethical values. Okay.
Absolutely. So you're a rebel with a cause and a rebel with a pause. You know when to pause.
That's interesting.
I call
Well,
myself rebel with a cause and without a pause.
no, that's interesting one. Thank you, Jerry.
I'm very happy that you brought about this topic of ethics up, because I remember around 10 or 11 years ago, I
Hmm.
was invited by the DG of the IAS Academy in Missouri to address the new IAS cohort for the first time.
Okay.
And we created the Right Every Wrong Conclave, which is now called the Rex Conclave, and the Rex Karmaveer Global Fellowship and the Karmaveer Puraskar Awards. And we have these awards every year on the 26th of November.
Mhm.
So I said, since it's a room full of IAS officers, almost 350, 400 people out there, I said, let me start by asking you, what is the significance of 2611? And none of them could answer.
Hmm.
Then I asked them, I said, what are our fundamental rights? And none of them could answer.
Hmm.
And what are our fundamental duties? None of them could answer. And I said, do you know the preamble of the Constitution? None of them could recite it properly.
Hmm.
And I said, and you guys are here to be bureaucrats,
Hmm.
IAS officers. And I think the shock on my face was very evident. So Dr. Rakesh Kumar, who was there, at tea time, he came to me and said, Jerry, you seem to be very shocked and appalled. And I said, yes, sir, these are all future bureaucrats and they don't know the preamble. They don't know the preamble, social, political, and economic justice that we're talking about right now. Right. And I said, they don't even know the significance of 2611, which is the day when the Constitution was adopted in 1949.
Adopted.
And I said, we celebrate it as the National Social Justice and Citizen Action Day, which now the government has finally adopted as the Constitution Day. And he said, Jerry, that is why we pay you and call you here to speak, no? Because we want you to inculcate some ethics in them. And he said, why are you aghast? What is the reason you're aghast? What you have to understand, we have to transform them to understand that they have to serve the country, because most people who join the IAS service, they don't come here to serve the country. They serve here to get out of their poverty. They serve here to they come here they don't not serve here, but they come here to increase their dowry. I said, they take dowry also. He said, yeah, it's a part of our system. We are entitled to it. So he was, of course, trying to educate me in a lighter way, in that don't be aghast, work with them, transform them. But I completely agree with you that the ethics have gone missing somewhere, and the disparity is probably increasing because of that. When the migrant labor exodus happened during the lockdown last May, June, I worked with Dr. Professor Ruchira Gupta, who runs the Apne Aap
Mhm.
worldwide organization to address issues of trafficking. And we worked specifically we started something called 1millionmeals.org to
Mhm.
provide meals to women and children who are victims of trafficking. And then when the migrant labor exodus happened, I said, Ruchira, I think we should also reach out to the migrant labor. And she ended up serving over 5 million meals. And at that time, I said, I'm not only disappointed at the way the state treated the migrant labor, I'm more disappointed with the way the society treated the migrant labor. Car cleaners were fired in places like Gurgaon, where people stay in apartments and condominiums which cost you crores of rupees. You couldn't pay the car cleaner 500 rupees just because the car cleaner was not coming. So I think this is a complete failure, not just of state, but a failure of society, where we have not understood that, that they are the pillars of our economy.
No,
And
I would like to while you are talking about the car cleaners having suffered during the COVID times, I would like to mention about one particular area, that is domestic workers, as you know,
right,
because you may be knowing that I also created, with the help of Ministry of Labor and ILO, Ministry of Skill Development, the Domestic Worker Sector Skill Council, which is the solitary organization in the government, supported by government, for the domestic workers in the country. 20 million domestic workers, they happen to be there.
right,
During COVID times, one of the studies we carried out, because I've been working as chairman for nearly 4 years in that body, that all domestic workers in the country lost their jobs.
right,
And this is one of the largest unorganized segment of the workforce in the country. You know it very well.
very true.
And then they had to suffer miserably. And in fact, on the part of the government, there was practically no effort. while like Ruchira's organization, while Prayas fed about 3,65,000 people during the COVID times, nearly 25,000 migrant workers stayed with us.
Very
And
nice.
among the various segments we approached in the communities, domestic workers turned out to be a major group because they suffered very, very badly. Most of the domestic workers whose husbands and family members have been doing casual work in Delhi, they lost out both ways.
Right. True.
No
Very true.
casual work, no domestic work. So they were nowhere. So these are the situations. On the other point, also, Zeri, you talked about the Constitution of India. Now, one change one notices. In fact, 2611, I remembered because the simple reason that even yesterday I read in a newspaper about Constitution of India that this was the day we adopted the Constitution. And now, for the first time, you know what happened in Shaheen Bagh? Uh, they talked about constitution. I
True.
think a lot of these agitations are being carried out with Constitution of India in hand.
Absolutely.
It's a
Absolutely.
remarkable change. It's a very
Absolutely.
happy and remarkable
Absolutely.
change.
Absolutely.
I mean, the people who are said to be agitators, the people who are said to be against the establishment, the people who are revolting against the government, let us say, they are coming with the constitution, the book of the constitution.
Absolutely, because being a voice of dissent and freedom of expression is our birthright
I know,
as a
correct,
citizen
correct.
of the world's largest democracy. And you are stifling that dissent, you are stifling that voice of expression. I remember when the Shaheen Bagh incident was happening, we were the first to award the women of Shaheen Bagh the Rex Karmaveer Global Fellowship and the Karmaveer Chakra Award that we instituted in association with the UN. And now, of course, they have been chosen as the time most influential people. But the idea is that you're living in a democracy, and whether it is Congress or BJP, you can't stifle dissent, you can't stifle a protest, because this is a democracy. It means people power, not Modi power or Gandhi power. It is people power. And I think that is very important for people to understand. And there was something which you said, sir, which I really picked on, which is, where the domestic house help, which you said is a huge workforce. And I was watching this interview which was floating on WhatsApp at that time. It was a gentleman from Pakistan speaking to a Pakistani news reporter on a Pakistani TV channel. And the news reporter, I don't know her name because I don't watch Pakistani TV also, but she asked this gentleman. She said, "Tell me, there are billionaires who are losing money. The stock market is losing money because of the lockdown." And he said, "Why are we worried? What if billionaires lose money and celebrities lose money? It's okay. What if big investors lose money? It's okay. We don't have to worry because the world won't come to a standstill." He said, "What you have to worry about is all our workers, our migrant workers, that if they collapse, they are the pillars of the economy. Then the world will come to a standstill if they stop working." And just after I watched this, around 2 weeks later is when the migrant exodus happened. And I remember at that time I decided to write a book of Karmakari COVID heroes, people like you, people like Ruchira, who have served the community in this time of peril. And we started a Thanksgiving movement that let us say thank you to all the so-called workers who are ignored and invisible, like the truck drivers, the grocers, the security guards, the housekeeping staff, the janitors, the municipal workers, our health workers, because they are the ones who are out there serving us while we are all sitting powerlessly at home. And we started the Thanksgiving movement. I'll forward it to you on WhatsApp.
No, that's it. That's a good move. I'm really so impressed knowing all about it. That this
Yes,
kind of Thanksgiving is required.
absolutely. So I
Making
said, let's give
thanks.
thanks to all our ordinary
Correct,
workers
correct.
because they are the ones who are out there serving us.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's why, and let's compliment nature also.
True.
It's believed that people in the lower strata of society, socio-economically lower strata of society, people from slums, people from villages, people from smaller places, they have suffered much less. I
Absolutely.
mean, the suffering and the casualty in the higher strata has been far more than the suffering and
Absolutely.
casualty in the lower
Absolutely.
stratas.
Absolutely.
India became a story by itself in COVID times, partly for the reason that, well, I think certain kind of profile, certain kind of immunity is said to be, that is unknown immunity. It's not diagnosed, it is not known what kind of immunity, but that immunity saved a lot of Indians. although they
Absolutely true.
suffered very bad.
Absolutely true. Because they are much more tardy than us. I always say this, that the film stars have to go to gyms and take some artificial proteins to make their six packs, while our laborers of India have natural six packs. You go and meet any farmer or any laborer from UP and BR, and you'll see six packs bulging out of their bellies, right? And I completely agree with you. It's because of their hard life, their hard work that they do, that they are more tardy and they didn't get the COVID virus, and that is their immunity, which is completely kind of messed up for people like us, because we drink RO water while they are drinking the natural water. But I think a point well taken, and I always say this, that our roti, kapda, and makan comes to us because of the migrant labor, not because of any rich landlord or real estate baron. The bricks that are made, which go into our homes, and the homes are made by migrant labor. The clothes are not made by fashion designers and the Gaps and the Primarks of the world. The clothes are made by migrant labor again, right? And the food that we eat is not grown by rich farmers. It is grown by the migrant labor again. So technically, we are so dependent on them, and yet we treated them so badly. But moving on from there, sir, I want to ask you a question now, and this is I'm going to just pull up this slide over here. When I started writing Karma Kari, I was asked, why are you writing about ordinary people? Who wants to know about ordinary people and things like that? And I said, I see myself as a historian for
Mhm.
ordinary people, because they are the real heroes. They are the ones who are serving community and changing our world every day. What we call as everyday ordinary heroes, but real heroes. And I wrote about people who have transformed villages of India from wastelands into wetlands in a Karma Kari series. And I said, the the reporter asked me in 2010 when I announced the book. She said, you should write about Shah Rukh Khan, Sachin Tendulkar. I said, they don't inspire me. They don't impress me. In fact, you can see that they're doing sweet bugger all for the community and the society. But these are the people who are changing the world every day. So I was inspired by the ordinary common citizen of India to start writing the Karma Kari series. What inspired you to get into writing? I want to come specifically to your profile, your role as an author, and your books now.
No, well, I think the disclaimer which I have been giving to a lot of people, let me repeat to you also. I said that I would have preferred to remain an actor and a performer than to become an author and narrator. That was my first disclaimer.
Okay.
So actually, I did not write for a long time. I mean, you must have seen that uh, I'm the one who's in the habit of writing, scribbling small notes in my diary all my life.
Right.
And as a police officer, it was needed. It was the
Right.
call of duty. It was requirement of the job. So I maintained diaries, and those diaries used to be very copious. I mean, if you look at my diary, small kind of scribblings, others may not read. I can read perhaps partly.
Right.
So that kind of thing kept on piling for decades, and
So
I
you
maintained
had a
some
lot of
records of
notes
mine.
from your journals.
That's correct. That's
Mhm.
correct. And people now, those who are reading my book in various cases like 1984 riots, then transistor bomb blast case, then Lalit Markan assassination, Arjun Das assassination, Rajiv Gandhi assassination, General Vaidya assassination, and that kind of cases which I have dealt with in my first volume. Everybody says that how these details are there with you. I said, because I recorded them, I wrote them. So it was there, it was lying like this. What happened around the time I worked with you a little later, that HarperCollins found in me an interesting person, and they asked me to write my memoirs and things. I said the same thing. But then I could not leave the service. I wanted to get away from IPS and do something else in the voluntary sector, which I could not do because of Jaskalal case, which became a challenge for me that time. I was in Arunachal Pradesh for nearly 2 years. So each time I'll come to Delhi, I'll carry my notes, I'll carry my diaries and dictate or write. So I ended up writing about 400 pages while I was in Arunachal Pradesh. And those 400 pages were written for HarperCollins actually. But after that, I took over as chairman of Child Rights Commission, a lot of other activities concerning government. I didn't want to give out these stories, some of them being explosive stories about
Right.
my police work. So it kept on hanging again. Then finally, Bloomsbury came the way, and they encouraged me. They sat with me, and we decided to kind of publish my police memoir, which is now, as you know very well, that the first print is out already. People have taken it away. I never expected that as an author, as a writer, I would be a welcome person or whatever. But now I find that people like it, so good
Right.
enough. When they
Right.
when they when they like what I am writing, then perhaps I'll write more. it might happen again. That's the story. Okay.
Because you've gone behind the scenes.
Well, I have to. I had to
Yes,
because see,
and you're informing the public about what has been hidden from them for so many years, probably in the name of the National Security Act, etc.
well, I think on that point, you are correct that it is not that I'm exposing anything for a purpose,
Hmm.
not that I'm trying to create some kind of commotion or some kind of situation where people learn something which is not there. Let me inform you that a lot of these things remain in public domain, but people
Right,
are not able to understand.
right,
Because see, they come in bits and pieces.
right,
And if you look into various, for that matter, let me tell you something very interesting. I think even the most secretive intelligence organizations, they, the material that comes to an intelligence organization, nearly 80% of that material is overt, which is
right,
already there. People don't
right,
notice it.
right,
Only 20 to 30% material of intelligence organization happens to be covert.
right. True.
This they gather after a lot of kind of sleuthing and study and investigations. So this is what it is. What I have done, that since I have been through the process, since I have dealt with all those situations, and since well, I'm slightly unlike many others, so I thought also about it. I felt unhappy, I felt emotional, I felt involved, I felt engaged. So all those things were brought into the details of those stories which I have brought out in the book. And surprisingly, people like it as very interesting thing. They think it's something new they are getting. Not that I'm trying to inform them, but it's the right to know. I mean, after all, a happening or an event or law and order situation in public domain, every citizen has a right to know about it. So
Very
I'm
true.
giving it back to them what they have a right to know. That's all I can say. Okay.
And I completely agree with you that every citizen of India in the world's largest democracy, and democracy comes from two words, demos and kratos, which means people power. So they have a right to know everything. Nothing needs to be covered from them, because they are the citizens are the rulers of India, not the politicians, or not the bureaucrats. And thank you for asserting that, because I always say this in a lot of my talks, that you have a right to know, unlike what Arnav Goswami says, India wants to know, which is only what he wants to tell you. But I think citizens have a right to know what exactly is happening where, because that's the way a democracy functions, with full transparency and accountability, failing which it can never function.
No,
And
applied to police, Jerry, applied to the police work. I have been always asking for something called community policing.
right,
The term community policing is a cliche. I mean, in the common parlance and amongst the police officers also, it is not considered to be something so popular.
right,
Although community policing doesn't mean anything special. Community policing means policing is for the community.
true,
On any aspect of policing, it is community with whom the police has to act and interface and not only interface, apply the laws also. After
very
all,
true,
law enforcement is for the community.
very true,
So now I found that over the years, the concept of community policing, which was something peripheral, which was supposed to be a soft kind of policing, is becoming the mainstream policing. And times will come, I am very confident, times will come when this kind of policing will become the most important policing. You have seen already in cases like Nirbhaya case, for example, and some other cases. I mean, there have been national uproars, and the
right,
people got. I mean, they were totally taken by surprise that well, a case can create this kind of uproar at the national level. I can recall the day when Rashtrapati Bhavan's gate was being rattled by 10,000 people, and inside, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee was squabbling. The President of India was disturbed. What's happening around him?
right.
And no way they could create a Tiananmen Square out of that situation. Do you understand that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
The people's power, on account of the lack of participation of people in these situations, lack of knowledge, is something which is our job to really tell them. Well, it's their
Absolutely,
due. It's nothing extraordinary. Okay.
absolutely. I've always had this debate with Harsh Mandar and several other people who are there in the NAC, um, right from Aruna Roy, etc. And I remember when Montek Singh Ahluwalia made a statement saying that 32 rupees is good enough for a family of four to have proper meals and survive every day. And nobody in the NAC spoke against what he said, because uh, this was in 2009 or 10. And in 2002, I remember working with Harsh and several others to oppose the $2 regime, which was implemented by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, saying that $2 is good enough for a family to survive.
And
And
that
then
time, perhaps a dollar was 30 rupees.
much more.
I think
In
much more.
2000, in 2002 3, it was around 45, 46 rupees.
That means about 90 rupees or
Yes,
100
yeah,
rupees, maybe. Yes,
yeah.
that's correct.
And
For a
and
day.
and around 2008, 2009, it was 75 rupees, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
And I said, none of you all have spoken, and I had to actually keep sending them messages that, have you forgotten your maths, or have you become slaves to the red beacon cars? Now, the reason I'm taking this line of approach is because I've often heard many activists who are very Congress aligned
Mhm.
saying that Congress is better than BJP. I am frankly non-partisan and apolitical. I'm political as a citizen of India, but I don't take sides with Congress or BJP. For me, they are the same nonsense, right? And I said that you have to oppose anybody who is doing wrong. Now, I remember during 2002 working closely with Harsh, I clearly said that, I don't think it was planned by Modi, but yes, he did keep silent. So let's not take a Congress side with it, and let's not say that Congress is not communal, because Congress is as communal. Because Sikh riots happened in Congress's time, right? Bhagalpur happened in Congress's time. So they have a hand and a role in it. And you, in your book, have spoken about the 1984 anti-Sikh riots. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I have gone in great detail because
Yes,
I was a very active participant.
yes,
And, I was Deputy Commissioner of Police, Central Delhi. And
right,
Central Delhi being the nerve center of the city and full of communal situations, including Sikhs, was very badly affected. Uh, and I did my best. I did my best. And actually, my work was highly appreciated by various commissions and people. I got a gallantry award also in that work. And I didn't realize during that period, that is 31st of October 1984 till 5th of November 1984, while I was like a person possessed and I was trying to do whatever I could. But
right,
later people said, and it was realized that whatever I did, many others could not do. And out
right,
of 3,006 who were killed, massacred, I think I am also calling it pogrom, for example. 3,006 who were massacred. We had Central Delhi had just about 40, and we could protect them to the maximum possible of our efforts and, of course, capability that was there. But then I have brought out the true picture of it, and
right,
as it happened, as it unfolded, I have not concealed anything this way or that way.
right,
And that is how the participation of some of the leaders also has been brought out very clearly into it.
right,
That's
right,
how the violence which came, and I faced it, I have given it out. If I failed somewhere, I have admitted it, I have accepted it. So that is what it was,
right,
1984
right,
riots. I have gone into the background of it, and I have gone into the subsequent incidents. As a direct fallout of 1984 riots came, let's say, transistor bomb cases where 80 persons were killed
right,
in
right,
5 states of India. A
right,
series of political killings was direct outcome of 1984 riots,
right,
because they were drawn from that black book, Who Are Guilty, which was produced by PUDR. You might have heard about it.
right,
People's Union for Democratic Rights. They brought out a book, Who
right,
Are Guilty. In
right.
that book, the names of Lalit was there, the name of other people were there. So, this was all in continuity. So I have just located myself wherever I acted and
Right.
then gave it out. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm happy for that you shared this so candidly and with all candor. We started the author experience conversations on 3rd of Jan with
Mhm.
Mr. GBS Sidhu, who
Okay.
was the director in the RNAW, and he's written a book called The Khalistan Conspiracy, where he
Okay.
spoke threadbare about how the Congress and Gandhis had a role in the
Mhm.
formation of the Khalistani movement. And I want all my audience, especially my friends who are big supporters of Congress, to realize this, that it's not just BJP which is communal, even the Congress is communal. So we are stuck between the devil and the deep sea, and nobody is better. It's just that we have to choose the lesser evil. And this is my big message to all the audience out
Mhm.
there. You also were part of, investigating all several financial frauds, including Harshad Mehta. Now, many know that yes, he did a fraud and everything, but people also believe that he was ready to pay back everything, and that because of some kind of political vendetta, he was killed. What are your thoughts and insights on that? That
He claimed because he was in my custody for nearly a month.
right,
And after the investigations were almost wrapped up in Bombay, and the investigations pertaining to share market, because he was the most visible bull in the share market.
right,
And then what he did that he managed to get a lot of money from the public sector undertakings, from the banks, and put them into the share market and created that artificial boom. And nearly 14,000 crores went into share market. And that kind of money, while it was at the peak, it was realized that he had practically, legally speaking, misappropriated a lot of money, brought into his own account, pushed into share market, and share market had an artificial bloom, which really went off.
right.
Suddenly, the balloon was burst, and the share market collapsed, and we suffered a loss also. So
So
what he said,
the bull run got exposed.
correct. And when he was in our custody, and I used to interrogate him, he used to say that, well, I'm a patriot. I'm the one who was trying to save India from these international financial kind of sharks who were trying to attack India, who were trying to take advantage of this situation. And that was the time, incidentally, following, let's say, the collapse of PSUs. You remember 1991, when Manmohan Singh and Narasimha Rao, when they brought about this globalization, privatization, new economy was brought into it, 1991. Prior to that, the public sector undertakings were collapsing,
Right,
whatever be the reason. And then so a peculiar situation of fiscal anarchy was created. And as you know that the finance minister, as finance minister Yashwant Sinha, had to pledge the gold in order to maintain the international parity of the foreign exchange. So those
right,
things had happened. So it was a time for change. In
right,
that kind of volatile situation, Harshad Mehta played a role, which he thought and sincerely thought that he was the right person. We
right.
were the wrong person to interrogate him. I mean, that was the feeling that he had. Okay. But of course, whatever he did was something which was totally illegal, incorrect, and it had to be kind of neutralized.
Yeah, I've not seen the series, but there's a series happening on one of the OTT platforms right now, either on Netflix or on Amazon Prime, where they've again tried to balance it and say that no, he had better intent and good intent. And like you now said, I mean, I'm surprised to hear that he thought he was a patriot, because what he did was wrong. And
No, 19, there is a series called 1992, and that
right,
is about Mehta. They have not brought out that part of the story which I did. I mean, I
right,
was supervising, let's say, the political manipulations he did in Delhi, the bureaucratic manipulations he did here.
right,
That part of investigation has not been shown at all. It is a story of the rise and fall of a very powerful person, in a way, who was an ordinary man and went on to become the top person in the share market, one of the richest men in the country. If you recall that he had actually became an icon in
right.
those
He did.
times. In
He
those
did.
times, he became the highest income tax pay in one of the sections of the income tax pays. And
Right.
then, for the Indian youth, he became an iconic character,
Yes.
and that was the position he occupied when all this thing happened and CBI
Yes.
got into play and things like that. Okay.
Yes, and it's surprising that the youth has not changed over the years, because we get mesmerized by the 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 false sheen and the false bubbles which are portrayed, rather than understanding that it's hard work which pays, rather than just the bubble of fame and glory. That's what we teach in our leadership courses to kids and to students, that success does not just mean fame, glory, fortune. It means making positive contributions, creating value, and doing things in the right way. And I'm happy that you kind of
No, one with reference to that, there is something more which, see, in my narration of police history or narration of police cases which I did, and I'm likely to do further. See, I'm not for the heroic policing. I'm
right,
using this term time and again.
right,
I'm not for that kind of policing where somebody presents himself like a Singham. No,
Right.
the Singham, I am not one of the Singhams, let me inform you.
Absolutely.
Let it
Absolutely.
be
I
loud,
completely agree with you.
loud and clear that, like, for example, most of the Singhams in the country, they indulge in encounters.
Right.
And most of the encounters happen to be false encounters. They are murders, actually.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
decidedly, I'm not party to that kind of policing, that kind of heroic policing. You understand that?
Absolutely.
Many a
Absolutely.
times people get enamored with those kind of characters. And well, Harshad Mehta could be one of them in a
Yeah.
different
No,
domain altogether.
therein lies the problem with our nature and nurture, especially in our culture and geography, because we are like I always say, we are a country of idol worshippers, and
That's
the
correct.
Singhams and the Surya Vanshams and the Suryas or whatever they're called are not heroes at all. You can see them, Akshay Kumar and Ajay Devgan, they are behaving like wimps and cowards right now. So I hope the youth understands that these are all paper tigers and not real heroes. That was one of the reasons to write. My inspiration was that the youth should know who are the real heroes. It's not the
Correct.
celebrities or the sports stars. Sachin Tendulkar and everybody has proven to be the cowards that they are in current times by not taking a stand ever in their life, and for the
I
first time
know.
they've taken a stand only because they want to say that this is our internal matter. It's not an internal matter, it's a global human rights issue. And if you don't understand it, shut up, because don't talk about it, especially when you don't know what is right and wrong.
Mhm.
And I'm happy that you echoed that, because I always say heroism is not about fighting with 10 people and proving your bravado and machoism. Heroism is about doing small things with great love and making a difference and making a positive contribution. And
I
I'm
agree.
happy that as an IPS officer you echo that. Which brings me to my so this is something which I want to ask you, and I'm sure that the audience wants to also know about it. Again, Charles Sobraj has been always portrayed as this larger than life figure, right? And if you actually scratch the surface, you will see that Charles Sobraj is actually a sociopath and a very manipulative, confidence trickster who not only tricked people but also kind of used their confidence and trust to kill them, to do all kinds of crimes against humanity against them. And then you had the escape and the arrest. What can you share about that entire episode with us?
Actually, you have just now you have used a couple of words and expressions about Charles, and those expressions about Charles Sobraj are the ones which probably were my expressions, in the sense that what happened that, well, all his life, like a confidence trickster in the first place, and a person who was just a nasty character,
Absolutely.
trying to pretend to be someone who knew the law, trying to pretend somebody who delved in the philosophy of Buddha and all that stuff. He was trying to present himself, as sometimes a spiritual, sometimes intellectual, sometimes a great person knowing law and things like that, helping people. All that kind of various kind of positions that he took in his life were all false. He was a false character and a dirty character, out and out dirty. And when he was in my custody for nearly a month, and he admitted almost everything without third degree, he understood that this man will not take the bullshit. So he understood everything, and then he opened up. He opened up, and we finalized the case. And we also, kind of, there was a character called Richard, and he was. I mean, one day what happened that he was not opening up, one of the Charles associates. So I offered him kind of the tiffin which I carry from home. My wife had given that lunch box, and I opened the lunch box. Well, he became slightly emotional, that fellow, and in that emotional state, he. I asked him, "You are getting emotional." So he wanted to speak to his wife. So I connected him to his wife, and then after that, he opened the entire story. So
Right.
that is the way I have been investigating cases also. And so ultimately, we learned everything about Charles. Charles was not exactly what people projected him to be. I mean, that's
Right.
the last point I would like to mention.
No, and I'm very happy that you brought this out, because there are a lot of authors out there who project the Dawood Ibrahims, the Chota Rajans, the gangsters of India, like Abu Salem, etc., as human interest stories that they had a bad childhood, so they are justified in what they're doing. I don't agree at all. We've all had our problems in our childhood and in our youth. That doesn't mean that you could become a gangster and kill people. And I think portraying them as heroes in Hindi movies, where you portray these characters like that they're larger than life, is actually misleading for the youth. And I remember working with children from a place called Kamatipura
Mhm.
in way back in 1988 as a volunteer of my college, St. Xavier's College,
Mhm.
and the boys of that place were kind of mesmerized by Dawood and Karim Lala, etc. Ki agla Dawn to hum banega, right? And it didn't help that they used to watch all these movies like Dawn, etc., where you show gangsters as larger than life heroes. And I think that's the irresponsibility of the media and entertainment industry, that rather than showing the story realistically, that they were misled and waylaid and were nothing but nasty characters, you try to portray them as heroes and messiahs. So thank you for endorsing that, and I'm very happy that you spoke with all candor, because you dealt with all these people firsthand. The final question that I want to ask you before we close is, there were this series of mass explosions that happened all over, and then of course you had 1992 when those major bomb blasts happened in Bombay. uh, One thought is that you try to condemn an entire community as the bad guys, the Muslim community, and the other thought is that if you marginalize people, right, there will be retaliation, there will be a reaction, right? Like this entire concept of war on terrorism, which the United States has tried to peddle and sell to us. War on terrorism is not about killing Osama bin Laden. War on terrorism is about addressing issues related to marginalization, poverty, lack of education, lack of opportunity. If you're not addressing those, we will only manifest more crime and more terrorism. What are your thoughts and insights on this, as a person who's been there in the police system, as a person who's been working on the other side, seamlessly working with children, trying to kind of rehabilitate them and give them a good life and mainstream them into the right way of living?
Now, while you study the chapter, read the chapter regarding transistor bomb cases.
Right,
Well, transistor bomb blast cases, as you know, was a direct outcome of 1984 riots.
right, right,
And because Sikhs were massacred in the city of Delhi, so
right,
all the top outfits, the terrorist outfits of the country who were active at that point of time, they combined their resources, they joined hands, and they created the so-called transistor bomb blast cases where they manufactured about 100 bombs and they placed in about 80, 85 locations in 5 states of India, Delhi being the main place where maximum killing took place. And it was blasted simultaneously, killing about 80 people. Now, I was very fortunate to have worked out this case in 3 days' time because I got some information on account of my community contacts. The case got worked out, and we arrested over 50 people who planted the bombs, who conspired, who manufactured it. We found that majority means 80% of them, happened to be the first timers. They
right,
had no criminal history.
right,
They had no criminal history at all. They had no antecedent of committing crimes, but they did it. Somebody gave them, let us say, the main conspirators had a background, all right. Somebody who is the person to inspire and conspire and create the whole mayhem. They give him the bomb in the hand, the transistor. He goes to a particular bus and plants it and places and comes back. He's working on a lathe machine, and he goes from there and comes from there and starts working the normal life. So these are the kinds of things, because of the that huge burning arm in the soul which was brought into their hearts
right,
ultimately because
right.
of the 1984 riots. They were itching to take revenge. So that kind of revenge has played a very important role. How do you analyze it is your lookout. I arrested them, I prosecuted them, but then I understood their psyche very well, which I have written also.
And
I
I'm
have
happy,
written why it happened.
and I'm happy that you brought that important aspect of understanding their psyche. There is this movie called The Peacemaker. I don't
Mhm.
know if you watched it. it's
No, I
it's
haven't. I haven't. I
it's
didn't take.
co-produced by George Clooney, and George Clooney also acts in it.
Mhm.
And I want this to go out to all the people watching in the audience, because a lot of people in the world always like to think that all terrorists are Muslims, or without understanding what their plight is or what their situation is. And I'm happy that you brought this out, that the reason that these people retaliated is because they were marginalized and they were killed, and they felt that they had to kind of retort in some way. In the Peacemaker, there is a music teacher, a very peace loving music teacher, who lives with his wife and daughter in a place like Bosnia. And in a carpet bombing incident, the Americans kill a lot of people, which includes his wife and his daughter. And this peace loving music teacher overnight transforms and transitions into a person who just wants to become a human bomb and go and blow up the UN to make a statement that don't marginalize the community, right? So I think that that's something which all of us have to understand, that no community can be branded as a terrorist, whether it's the Sikhs or the Muslims. Right now the Sikhs are being branded as Khalistani. They're trying to prove that the entire farmers protest is a Khalistani movement, when it's not just Sikhs who are in the farmer protest. There are many Hindus in the protest from all over the country, not just from Punjab and Haryana. I want the audience to know that. And finally, sir, I want your insight on this. This is something, when Ajmal Kasab was finally prosecuted, and they decided to hang him, uh, people went berserk on social media and said, great decision, he must be hanged, an eye for an eye, etc. And so many of those people who went berserk on social media, I was watching them, and I remember I unfriended them, uh, were people working in the Oxfams, the Amnesties, the Action Aids of the world. Now, a lot of these organizations get funding to work with child soldiers, right? And they work in Africa, in Congo, in Ethiopia with child soldiers, African children who are shown in a movie called Blood Diamond. And then a lot of these people will pretend that they have huge sympathy and empathy for the child soldiers. Now, when Ajmal Kasab was finally kind of prosecuted and the punishment was given out that he will be hanged, everybody was celebrating it. And I wrote a small post. I said, how is it that when we watch a movie called Blood Diamond, we sympathize with the child soldier? While here is a child soldier who was brainwashed from the age of 7. And in that same time, people wanted to forgive and pardon Sanjay Dutt, who had a huge hand and a role to play in what happened in the Bombay blasts in 1992. What are your thoughts about this hypocrisy of society? Why couldn't we take Ajmal Kasab and rehabilitate him and make him the poster boy for anti-terrorism? What are your any insights on this? Since you work on
No,
rehabilitation.
actually, see what happens that most of the people uh, who are not the actual participant in a situation, or who don't happen to be knowing the facts as it occur, or who have not gone deeper into the facts. And the facts, of course, include the players also. The facts are not only events and transactions. The facts include the players, the people who transact an event,
Right.
and their background, things like that, which is a much deeper study to go into, which people can't really go. So they are governed by whatever thoughts buffet them, whatever thoughts really blow around them. And they blow around on account of the media, partly on account of the political thoughts which are there prevailing in the atmosphere in that political scenario. So they are governed by that, and they take a view, and that view is most of the time the view is not complete. It's incomplete view, in my opinion.
Right.
So basically, I will not say that this is right or wrong, but the view is incomplete. The opinion, which is finally which gets into their mind, settles into their heart, and becomes
Yeah.
kind of accepted opinion in a class of people, which is very incomplete. And perhaps people like us who have the opportunity to get all aspects, to know all aspects of a particular situation, if we come out our kind of story with all facts being just placed before them, it's for them to choose and make up the opinion. Okay.
Absolutely. And I'm happy you shared that view, because we come from a country which gave a movie called Do Aankhein Bara Haath, where the most
Mm.
hardened criminals are rehabilitated into becoming peace-loving citizens. And I always felt, and this is my view and this is my um, thought process and mindset, that if we had rehabilitated Ajmal Kasab and made him the poster boy of anti-terrorism, to tell young Muslim boys who are being poisoned and brainwashed that, hey, this is not jihad. Jihad is about the eternal holy struggle of love and loving all humankind. Then that would have been a better victory for all of humankind. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and thank you so much, Amodji, for all your brilliant insights and your candid conversation with me. You shared some brilliant thoughts and some very beautiful insights which all of us can learn from. Keep doing the good work. And for the audience, please show us your book once again. This is, of course, my Karmakari book. And
No,
please do
thank you
buy
for
Khaki in Dust
sharing.
Storm. khaki is our national color, as you know, and Amod ji has been wearing khaki for 34 years, and now he's written khaki in the dust storm. So please buy it on Amazon. It's available at all the bookstores, and of course, this is the first part of the trilogy. Amod ji, I hope your trilogy has only three serial parts and not four.
No, no, it's right now it's only three. Let's see
Okay,
how it works out.
by
Okay.
by public demand, we'll make it four.
Oh, thank you, Jerry. Thanks a
Very nice.
lot. Thanks to
Pleasure,
you.
pleasure learning with you. And like I was discussing with you behind the scenes, we should work on that book of juvenile heroes as a part of the Karma Kari series to raise funds for Prayas, to raise more funds for Prayas. And keep doing the good work, sir. Keep walking tall.
Thank you, Jerry. Let's meet again. Best of luck.
Surely.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Take care
Thank
and have a
you.
good
Bye
evening. Bye
bye.
bye.
Bye bye.